Staying ahead in the competitive and chaotic market is all about the preparation. And here in Bisnomics, in your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes, that's exactly what we aim to deliver, keeping you prepared today for the challenges of tomorrow with the latest market intel and expert opinion and insight. I'm Tharindu Amarasekara, and we are discussing a very pertinent topic in this month of March about the role of women in the economy. In Sri Lanka, women account for more than 50% of the population. They are in fact over 60% of the graduate outcomes of Sri Lanka. However, as business decision makers, are we doing the necessary activities and are we creating the right atmosphere to enable active and productive participation from them in our economic activities? Have we done what is truly needed to break the bias? To talk about this, and especially on the front of education for women and giving them the right opportunities to pursue education, we have joining today with us a very special guest. In fact, she is making her comeback into Bisnomics, who is none other than Ms. Onalie Dissanayake, country head for the Chartered Institute of Marketing in Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Onalie, welcome back to Bisnomics, and just like it was last time, you look absolutely dashing. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much, Tharindu. Thank you very much for inviting me. It is actually a privilege to come back and be a part of this program.
Absolutely. The pleasure is always ours. Onalie, let's look at the reality. In this modern day and age, we talk about so much of opportunities for empowering women, and yes, we do know that empowered women will continue to empower more women. But if you take a few steps back, before we talk of empowerment, before we talk of leadership, before we talk of employment, I believe, in my view at least, and myself being a lecturer as well, I believe it all starts with the education. I think in my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the starting point. Proper education for women will enable them to contribute and participate in economic activities in a much better and a much more productive manner. In today's terms, in today's modern day and age, what are the challenges that women in the Sri Lankan society face when it comes to access to education, and what's the economic impact of this issue?
Well, Tharindu, as you said, women consist 52% of our population, right? And the female labor force participation in Sri Lanka has dropped from 41% in 2009 to 36% in 2016, which means the contribution of women for economic development is less. When we compare places like Vietnam, Thailand, their contribution is above 50%. In Indonesia, it's 54%. In Thailand, it's 77%.
No wonder they are called the Thai economies, and they're doing quite well.
Yes, yes. There may be other reasons, yes. But the share of GDP in Sri Lanka by women is 29%. So, which means we have a lot more people that can contribute to the economy of Sri Lanka. We do, as you said, education, yes, it plays a vital role, but there may be other biases that are there which reflects, because when you look at the stats of the Ministry of Education, the examination department, in grade 1, the grade 1 enrollments it's equal whether it's male or female. So the participation or the enrollment levels are the same. And when you look at the stats going forward, these are the latest stats in 2020, you see that most men actually fall out from education compared to women. So from grade 10, more males drop out of schools, while females actually study more. They go into higher education, and the pass rates, I'm not being biased by any means, these are facts and figures I'm talking about. When you look at the scholarship exam, males and females, their level of getting qualified are the same. But when it comes to O-levels, 79% of females get through, while only 63% of males does. And when it comes to A-levels, 71% of females gets qualified to enter university, while only 54.9% of males does. So we can't say that education is not provided. There is a path for females to get educated.
And the system seems to be quite strong as well, isn't it? I mean, if not, they won't be really passing out like that.
System seems to be strong, but at the same time, though the stats say this, we have to consider the fact that there are more females in the society than males. But when you actually look at provincial participation in national schools consist of 95% of our students in Sri Lanka. So when you look at that, taking off the private schools, then you see the drop of female participation. So there are different reasons for that. So I think we can go into these details probably as we discuss.
And as you very correctly said, the picture seems all right, but when you go into that with a magnifying glass, you begin to realize where the holes are and where some of the problem pockets may be. And that's a good way to look at it, Onalie. Is it time to focus on some more tailored skills and tailored knowledge for women at a school level or university level? Do you think right now what we have is more like an equal, all-inclusive education opportunity where everyone goes through the same syllabus? I'm not trying to challenge that, but do you think that as we see in some of the foreign countries where, especially for ladies, recognizing what strengths that they could really bring into the economy as well, where there are certain tailored education programs, do you think that that can be looked at in the Sri Lankan context?
A few years ago, the government actually looked at providing vocational training. But now when you look at TVEC, Technical and Vocational Education Center, they see more male participation than females. So when you do these professional qualifications or technical programs, you are more apt to join the workforce because you have the skills that you require.
You're geared for the workplace.
Yes, but saying that the less participation of women, even though they're educated, even though they come out of universities, the fact that they are not skilled enough to join the workforce is a concern. So education and skill are two different aspects. But when you look at an employer, they are not seeking education alone. They want professionally qualified people who can come and work.
They need the skill.
Yes. So because of that, it is required. But saying that, there are biases even in schools and the opportunity is given. I'm just going to take an example. In our O-level syllabus, we have lots of possibilities of doing technical subjects, agriculture, home science. There are lots of aspects that people can actually do. But how many schools, female schools, give the opportunity to do technical subjects? Do they cater? Do they provide those? So it's not that the syllabuses hasn't given. There is a part, yes, the syllabuses can change with the current trends and the requirements, but there had been certain changes and available resources and material available, but are we actually using them? That is another question that we need to raise.
Correct. In terms of the delivery of the education, whether those practical aspects are being brought in.
Yes, yes. So as I said, there are opportunities, there are subjects, technical subjects, but due to different reasons, probably schools are not capable of catering to that.
Onalie, I think a point you highlighted earlier was that, especially when you look at outside Colombo in the more rural areas and the government schools, etc., that there are issues for these for women who are participating in education and going and getting that education. From your own understanding, and especially in rural Sri Lanka, I know this is a topic very much close to your heart. You're very passionate about this, you having been a teacher yourself. Onalie, in rural Sri Lanka, what are the challenges that especially young girls are facing with regard to education access, and what do you think can be done to maybe remove those barriers they may be facing?
Right. In rural areas, the government obviously have provided facilities, but obviously there are areas where they are lagging. Teacher resources are not there. So the rural, you get the difficulty is to get more qualified teachers to support this system. So what happens is when students are not getting sufficient support, parents also feel there is no point in going to school and wasting time and sitting waiting for a teacher to come on, that's a practical aspect.
But are there situations where there are some schools without teachers and the students are just, like, let's say, waiting without access to proper teachers?
There are situations like that, but in the same time, at the same phase, there are schools which has teachers with no students. Now, for example, when it comes to certain seasonal jobs, if they are working in the paddy fields and everything, the whole family goes during that time.
Correct.
So, which means the students will not be going to school during that time. There had been practical situations like that where teachers are waiting for students to come, and they've made certain changes also to support students. So in rural areas, poverty and survival also plays a major role. And at the same time, certain biases.
That's what we are all about this month, aren't we? We are trying to break the bias.
I don't know whether I should say this or not, but some biases are created by us women. Starting from home. If a girl says, I want to learn mechanical engineering, or say that she wants to work in a garage, what would the mother say?
Leave that to your brother or your your brothers or your elder brother and father.
Yes, the perception would be that's not for a girl. If you want, you go learn to cook or learn to bake cakes.
Or to sew.
Yes. So who is actually preventing that? I'm not blaming the mothers for anything, but
that's probably the way the mother was brought up as well.
Yes. So we have certain personal biases ourselves. So I think if we are going to break this in a society, I think we need to break this at home too. That's where we should start.
Some interesting thoughts there indeed. Onalie, we are going to come back to you on more details on this. Mm-hmm. How can we get the best out of our female graduates from the university system? Let's talk about that on the other side of this short break. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. I'm Tarindu Amarasekara. Our focus today is on education opportunities for women. As a country, are we doing what is right to make sure that they have proper access to education? And once they're educated, do we have the necessary setup, the necessary system? And have we broken the bias enough so that we give them the opportunity to participate in the economic activities? And we are in conversation with Ms. Onalie Dissanayake. Onalie, let's talk about the university graduates, because a girl going up to the level of the university, passing out from a degree, having invested so much of effort and years within the education system, once they come out of it, if they are not participating in the economic activity, I think that's a serious puncture in the economy of Sri Lanka. What are your thoughts on this? What is the reason for this issue of so many female graduates not really later on going to contribute to the workforce, number one? And number two, as I always ask, what can we do as a country to get them to the workforce and get the best out of them? Because end of the day, I think that's the key problem for which this country needs an answer in terms of female participation in the workforce.
But as you said, Tarindu, out of the females below 30 years of age, there is a high unemployability.
High unemployment.
Yes, okay. Right. So they are not employed, which means these are the graduates who had already come out.
Correct. And they're young, they're energetic.
Yes, they have a lot of energy, a lot of skill that they can provide. But what we have seen with the research that has been done by the World Bank and by the economic research, most of these females who go to university are mostly involved with art subjects.
I was about to get to that. Yeah. Yes.
So they are into arts, they are into sciences, or they are into law. So even agriculture, and males are more seen more in technical subjects like engineering, digital marketing, that kind of area. So males are more technically savvy. Obviously, we know that females have analytical brain compared to females. That is a physical phenomenon that we have. But that doesn't mean that females can't contribute in those aspects. There have been people who had exceeded in their performance. So the reason for the unemployment in Sri Lanka in the graduates who pass out is mainly because of the subject areas that they do. Because if you do agriculture, how many vacancies are there? So most of these vacancies, most of the females who come out, they are far more interested in getting into government jobs or flexible jobs or things which are, or companies which are closer to their place of residence. Or it has to be a thing that is allowed by the husband or the father in the house. So there are lots of barriers for them before they actually want to take part in the economic contribution.
Understood.
So for them, what happens is, since they choose an art subject, they need to go in that. And the best is they can become a teacher or in the clerical area in government organizations.
Understood.
So vacancies are limited.
And do you see that we are doing enough to prepare them, especially for these, what we call these online job opportunities? Because today there are so many platforms, from Fiverr to Upskill to, there are so many different web platforms using which you can get access to global opportunities. Maybe it can be an art student who is very good with language, and there might be opportunities for report writers, people who are looking for young graduates who are good with the language, who know how to write a good report, prepare a good report, even for proofreading. Only you're looking at hundreds of dollars per hour, and we are in a dollar crisis as we speak in this country. Do you think we are doing enough to let these graduates know about these opportunities? And if not, should that not be one of the main national agendas of this country?
It should be, but according to research, they've identified that females, when you compare with a male, their capability with all these digital platforms or even a phone is a little less in comparison to a male. It could be because they have not been exposed. But the chances of them getting into technical aspects or into this web-based businesses or opportunities are less because they are not technically savvy in that area. So I think as a nation, what we need to do is, we have computer as a subject in schools. Maybe we should tweak it a little to make it a little more practical on how we can use it to the most of our capabilities, because they will then as a child learn. Now when we have seen 5-6-year-olds capable of handling a phone compared to me. I mean, my child is far more capable of handling the phone, but that's because they are born with it. So this generation of females have come into a world that they are born into with technology. So they are definitely far more savvy than we are.
Correct.
So that means they can use their brain a little more fast than we do. So it is only the opportunities that we need to give them.
Let's talk about culture. You did mention it earlier as well about the role that culture plays. So this culture that especially Sri Lanka and most South Asian nations used to have, that women should run the household, they are in charge of the household activities. Has it changed in Sri Lanka, or has it not changed enough? And is this one of the reasons for the problem that we see?
Well, if you look at it on the surface, we can say it has changed, because we are living in an urban area. We are in Colombo. But when you take Sri Lanka as a whole, has it changed?
I believe more than 80% of Sri Lanka is rural.
Yes. So we are saying we've empowered women. We are saying that we have given opportunities to women. They are more free to walk around. We are basically restricting ourselves to the places we live in. It's the urban society we are talking about. But are we looking at the bigger picture? So when you look at the rural areas, do they have the facilities to go to work? Are there buses available after 9? Are there security facilities for them to go? Are there places for them to leave their children to contribute into the economy? So when our population is distributed more in the rural areas, we need to see whether they have the facilities to be able to contribute. So as you said, what happens is, yes, there are biases in different areas in rural. Nothing has, we may say that it has changed. But on a holistic level, we are still just probably a step ahead, but not in a place where we can comfortably say we have progressed. We are basically struggling to come out from, this is my personal view, but even in the research done by World Bank, there are skill mismatches. Human capital and skill mismatches are very common in females because...
Any examples of these skill mismatches which you can share?
Now, for example, if a company wants a technical person, how many applications will come from females?
Probably quite a low number.
If you have 100 applicants, probably around 5. So the reason for that is they don't have the skills to cater to the requirement of the corporate world. So they don't have the skills to match the human capital expected from organizations.
And yet we see in history, for example, America coming out of some of the war-torn eras, even Japan coming out of the crisis they were facing about a decade back. One of the key themes of the governments of those countries at that time was to request the women to get to the workforce and to contribute, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. We also have, in Sri Lanka, there was a time a few years ago that the government made changes to allow females to contribute into the economy by providing loans to females who want to get into entrepreneurship as SMEs. But there were certain other difficulties that females faced. I mean, it's not that they don't want to contribute. They do. But there are certain barriers that we don't look at in a holistic way. So what I feel is, true, we give solutions, but just a solution is not going to be enough. We need to be able to support those solutions to be implemented. That is what is required. Just saying, okay, this is what we are going to do, and here you are, is not going to do you any good if you're not going to put in processes to make sure that it's implemented in the right way, that you expect it to be implemented.
For sure. Yeah. The work from home culture that is now coming in, to me, sounds like a silver bullet to the problem of women having to give up work due to the issue of having to look after the home front. Do you see this development of technology, work from home, in terms of the research numbers? Does it show that, has it enabled more women to come back to the workforce, or are we still missing a step there?
There is a yes and a no, Tarindu. Now, some of the females, they have actually preferred to work from home because obviously it's easier. But when you talk to a lot of females who are working from home, still they feel that their contribution, they are unable to contribute productively to a certain extent, because when they are at home, they have the responsibilities of a parent or a caretaker. So that also stands in their way of contributing.
Reduces the productivity as well, probably.
Yes, yes. So actually in most countries, now they are not going into working from home. They have shifted to hybrid methods.
Correct.
Now, for instance, even in our organizations, we have shifted into hybrid method where all the teams come on a particular day for the meetings, to get together with people. We are social animals. So we like to meet people. We want to get out of the same house. Yes. We want to socialize, because that's when your contribution is more. Even in a company, if you don't see a person, the relationship you have and the contribution you make is less. So they have shifted it into such a way so that mainly for females to be able to participate productively, but still make sure that they come out, enjoy what is outside, and still continue to provide more support for the females to do it better.
Understood. What can the government really do to engage this female workforce that has kind of abandoned or rather disbanded themselves from the main economic activities? What kind of a message should the government drive, and is there anything that the government authorities can do to enable this workforce or rather potential workforce to get back to the workforce?
What I would suggest, this is my personal suggestion, that we need to upskill. You need to get more females to do more professional qualifications. They need to be able to not just educate themselves. As you know, you're a lecturer also, so you would know this better than me. Instead of just focusing on academic qualifications, they should also be professionally qualified. Because what happens is, if you look at the stats, most females are academically qualified,
but not really job market ready or professionally qualified. Understood.
Yes.
Understood. So that's something that the government could do.
Yes. Give more recognition for professional qualifications, one, and make sure that all the professional qualifications are of a particular standard, instead of having all sorts of qualifications dropping out of nowhere.
Correct.
It should have a standard, because that's the only way that they can contribute to the organization and then the economy.
What is the role of men in enabling more participation from women in the economic activities? Let's talk about that on the other side of this break. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics. We are in conversation with Ms. Onalie Dissanayake on the vital aspect of allowing more women to participate in the economic activities and the role that education plays in this aspect. Ms. Onalie, let's talk about STEM jobs. You know, it's the hype in terms of employment. Everyone is talking about it. Scientific, technological, engineering, mathematics. Now, I think you did mention this and touch upon this earlier as well, that when it comes to these areas, you don't see a lot of women participating. So that's exactly my question. What can we do to increase the participation of women in the STEM jobs? Number one, after all, if you look at the history of mankind, there is no shortage of women who has done wonders in the field of science, starting with the greats of Marie Curie and so on. So in your understanding, what can we really do in order to increase the participation of women in these STEM jobs? And also, especially on the education front, what can be done to gear them for these STEM jobs? Scientific, technological, engineering and mathematics.
Right. I will start off with the second part of it. Not the education. I will start from the second part of it. What we can do to get these ladies to get into more STEM jobs, right? They are, as you say, these girls are mostly into sciences. They do sciences, but mostly in the medicinal side or agriculture, dental, veterinary, that kind of area, but not the technical side of it, right? So that's because of this thing that we've created, that this is right for a female. This, if it's a nurse, when I say a nurse, what is the picture that comes into your head?
A female, yes.
A female.
I hope that doesn't make me a bad person.
No, it doesn't. So that's the perception that we have created. Now, when you actually look at the perception, we don't look at the contribution that females make in a household. Actually, it's an economic contribution, even though it's not legitimate.
Absolutely.
Right? So there is a lot of contribution that females do.
And I just want to add on a very personal front, I would not be here in this situation speaking to elite professionals like you if not for the sacrifices that my mother has done for me.
Yes. So there is a lot, right? So what we have to do is we need to change the way that females look at it. Now, then I'm going to mix it up with the first half of your question. What is education? What can we do on education? In education, as I previously said, we need to encourage students to do more, female students to do more technical subjects. We have to encourage, the schools have to give more opportunities for them to do more technical subjects. If there is mechanical subjects available in O levels, can we at least have one school starting it, a female school? That's a step forward.
So right now, is there a case where mechanical subjects are not offered in female schools or girls' schools?
Most of the, honestly, up to my knowledge, I'm not aware.
But there is absolutely no rationale in this. It's like you're not even giving them a chance.
That's the reason. So from a school's point of view, since I've also been in schools, if there aren't many students, then there is no point in getting a teacher. So because at the end of the day, the school needs to support that teacher, and if there are no students, then it is not going to be viable for the school. So we as a society need to create and provide opportunities for these students and create that environment where these students find out what kind of opportunities are there in the job market. What happens in Sri Lanka is we are career focused. So if there is a job, we learn, focused on that.
Correct.
Right? So if the girls get to know that there are opportunities like this, these are jobs which are there. Now, not like during my era. Now there are lots more opportunities for females, even in digital, as you said, web-based. They don't have to travel at all. They can do it from home.
Correct.
So there are opportunities, but how many are aware of it? How many are aware of the money that they can earn from it? So we need to give more enlightenment. We need to educate people more, not only females, but I think we need to educate parents also on what kind of opportunities are there and what they actually mean. Now, for an example, since I'm coming from a marketing background, if I say a salesperson, anyone would think of a person carrying something and going door to door.
Correct. But today you get online digital sales people.
Yes, but how many people actually walk door to door when they're doing sales? They don't. There are software selling. Which
Sales
brings
automation.
in, yes, it brings in millions of money. And if you look at the commissions, that's a massive amount that you can actually earn. But are we aware of these? So we need to actually go on a career drive and educate school children and parents on the possibilities and the practical aspect on how you can earn and what you can do for that.
Understood. On a more professional front, especially if you maybe take the urban areas and the ladies who are working in offices, organizations as managers, assistant managers, even executives, how important is continuous professional education or continuous education such as MBA programs for women? And what does research show? Are the female members of the workforce making use of these opportunities, and are they getting into these MBA programs and professional qualifications, or is it still something that needs to be looked into in more detail?
No, honestly speaking, we females like to learn. We have the feedback of our studies is higher. I mean, the capabilities, the marks, everything is higher in females because we like that. I'm not trying not to be biased here, but in comparison to men, females are far more proficient in getting higher grades. That's because their commitment, their focus is a lot more in comparison to men, right? So females do progress, but unfortunately, even though they are educated, how many of them get into the senior management? Not many, right? So there is a social bias because females are seen as caretakers. So what happens is you get married, you take a break because you are bearing children, and then you want to come back into the corporate world. But that's going to be a very tough task because you might come back after 5 years because your child is now in school. But during that time, males have progressed because they have more experience,
Correct.
they are more current, and you have lost a lot of areas, and not anyone is going to be able to give you that opportunity just like that.
Onalie, let's speak the reality here. I mean, we live in a world where even if you have not been working for 6 months, your CV is frowned upon, and here you are returning after 5 years. Definitely, very few organizations are willing to give them a chance.
Yes. So this has been a problem no matter what you do. So you might be an MBA, you might be a PhD, but coming back to work, being caretakers has been a reason why there aren't many females in senior management positions, because even though you don't say it out loud, we take being a mother as the first priority. Whether it's because of society or not, we take it as our first priority. So we consider that, and coming back is not a possibility. So that is also a reason why we are not contributing to the economy, because half of us want to come back, but we are not getting opportunities to do it.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Some of them don't want to come back because of the family duties, and some of them want to come back, but there's no opportunity given. I mean, you get cut by both sides, basically. I think it's a very pertinent situation that needs to be dealt with sooner than later. Thank you for your thoughts. On a final note, Onalie, I think this is more about the role of men. Now, yes, we are talking about women empowerment, the ability for women to come and participate in economic activities. But my question, don't the sons, the fathers, the husbands of this nation also have a role to play in enabling more women, in empowering more women to come forward and participate in the economic activities? I'm quite sure there's a lot of sons, husbands, fathers of this nation who are watching this show. What is your message to them?
Right. Not in a good position right now with all the fathers and sons looking at me. Right. But what I have to say is things have changed drastically over the years, because mayors have understood that it's important for a woman to contribute to the family because of the economical constraints that they have. Cost of living is going high, so it's always a woman has to contribute. And even sons have seen the mother contributing economically into the family, not only just cooking, but she's a working woman who goes out, does things, and come back. So I think not in a holistic, but on a surface, we have progressed. Because the reason why I say surface is I'm looking at the urban society who have understood that. But when you go into the bigger picture, it is not the case. But even though husbands, brothers, and fathers are supportive now, to a certain extent they are quite supportive. I think it's mostly these biases come from us women. This is my personal view. It might not be taken very well, but I feel we also need to encourage our daughters and not restricting them to the stereotype. If they want to play football, go play football. There's nothing wrong in that.
They could be just as good as Messi or Ronaldo.
Yes, yes.
Or even better.
Even better. So I think it's us who needs to believe in the fact that our daughters can do it, and giving them that opportunity instead of when they have to select a subject for A-levels and saying, why don't you do science or do commerce so that you can go into a bank? Without that, ask them, okay, what do you want to do? What can you contribute? What do you like? So if they want to just go and, paint, let them paint. So I think we also need to come out of that stereotyping females. And we as females also need to come out of stereotyping other females too. instead of saying, okay, she's a bad mother because she's working till late. It's not the case. Probably the picture inside is different. So I think men have definitely contributed to supporting females to a certain extent, but they can obviously do more. But I think we as females also need to support ourselves to break this vicious cycle that we are in.
And to break the bias.
Yes.
Onalie, on a final note, if you could just take a quick minute and give some words of inspiration to all the young women entrepreneurs, the women professionals out there. Indeed, March is the month of celebrating the achievements, the accomplishments of women in the workplace and worldwide. It's the month of the International Women's Day as well. What is your advice to, especially to any young professional woman or a women entrepreneur who's watching this show, your words of advice to them?
My word of advice is get yourself professionally qualified. Be confident in what you can do. And don't let others make you believe that you can't. But you need to be able to stand for yourself and have confidence in yourself. But just saying that I am qualified is not going to get you anywhere. You need to have the skill to contribute. So don't ask for equal rights. Ask for equal opportunities.
Some very varied thoughts there and very strong statement as well. Onalie Dissanayake, absolute pleasure to host you once again. It's great to see someone of such status, such as you, accomplish so much, who is also very passionate about a very pertinent problem of this country, education to women. As you said, we have the right education systems. It's a matter of making sure they get access to it and making it a more inclusive education system for women and not leave them out of certain criteria or certain categories of education. Thank you very much for joining us, and indeed, good luck with all the good work that you are doing. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Tharindu. Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you, TV1, for inviting me for this program. Enjoyed the discussion. Thank you once again.
The potential that women has to offer for the Sri Lankan economy and the global economy is indeed something that has no limits. But the question is, as a nation, are we doing what is necessary? Are we providing them the right education and creating the right economic opportunities for them to participate in our economy? And if we do that, only if we do that, we will be able to truly realize the potential of the entire economy. And let's hope sooner than later that the authorities and the business decision makers do that. I'm Tharindu Amarasekara, and no matter what business you may be in, try to see what are the opportunities for more contribution from the women in the workforce. I'll see you with the next episode. This is Bisnomics.